Hey guys, Journey to Truth is going to Hawaii. Join us in 2026 for Journey to Truth's first ever vacation conference on the Big Island at the beautiful Queen Emma Community Center in Kona. Enjoy Hawaii as we travel to sacred sites and connect with our Lemurian past and reactivate the land. It's time to get our bodies moving and take a boots-on-the-ground approach to the awakening. We'll also be making a trip to Volcano National Park to pay our respect to Pele, the goddess of fire. We'll then journey to the water for an ocean adventure with our multi-dimensional aquatic family. We'll gear up and head to the harbor as we set sail under the sun for an activating day on the water while we experience the Hawaiian ocean life like never before. Enjoy Hawaiian sunsets and walks on the beach while connecting with Soul Family and learning a few things from our amazing lineup of speakers. Aloha! Grab your ticket today at journeytotruth.online and join us for this once-in-a-lifetime activating getaway.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. A quick announcement before we get started. Our Hawaii trip is right around the corner. It's in April of 2026, and we cannot wait, April 20th through the 24th. And if you're interested in going on a vacation with us in Hawaii to a conference/retreat, all the information is available at journeytotruth.online. We are very excited about that. We're going to be in the ocean with the dolphins and whales, on a boat. We're going to be doing some sacred sites and obviously an amazing lineup of speakers. So if you're interested in coming to Hawaii, I think this will be the perfect opportunity. And the tickets are available at journeytotruth.online. So today, we're very excited about our guest, Dr. Salla, who he's joined us in the past years ago, but this is his first solo interview with us. If you don't know, he's an author, researcher, basically a disclosure activist, and he's been putting out some incredible research for many years now. And, he has a lot of interviews and a lot of content under his belt. So we're excited to pick his brain today and kind of feel out what's going on in the world. And just welcome to the show, Salla. We're happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great to have you.
Yep. So, you've been covering this for a long time, and I don't think a lot of people get to hear maybe your experiences, if you have any experiences. And, and it's up to you if you feel comfortable sharing any of that or not. But I figured maybe we can kind of give the audience a chance to see the other side of you, because you're always the one interviewing. So maybe if anything's recently happened, if you feel compelled to share that. If not, we can move into some of the more current events.
Sure. Well, the experience that I had that kind of has stuck with me for a long time was back in 1985, and I had just had a breakup with my girlfriend at the time, and I was very emotionally devastated, just like, what it's like when your first love ditches you and your world is crushed. And that's where I was. And I'm in my bedroom, just really feeling very sad, very depressed. And I remember seeing these light beings come into my room, and there were about 3 of them. It was they were blue, white light humanoids. And they just kind of like stood at the end of my bed and just kind of like radiated a presence, and it just made me feel better. What came to mind was, this is my family. Like they like communicated, we're your family. And I felt confused because it was like, hey, you're not my family. I've got, 4 sisters and a brother, and I know them all well, and you're not them. So how can you be my family? So I was kind of confused by that, but they were like, we're your family. And I just felt better. And so we fast forward to early this year, and I'm in hospital. I'm kind of like I've been poisoned. I'm in hospital. The surgeons are telling me I need to go through surgery to survive and all of that stuff. And I remember being told, "Connect with your star family, they'll heal you." And so I said, "No, I'm not gonna do surgery." And so I just, like, remembered that kinda connection I had back in, '85, and just, like, tried to feel it again, just feel into it. And I could feel into it, I could feel their presence, and I just started to feel better. And and now I'm fully healed. I think I was helped, by there were some, faith healers or psychic healers. Jerry Wills helped me a lot. I mean, he was really there for me. David Clements, another kind of, remote healer, helped me. But that was the thing that I did myself, because it was like, connect with your star family, they'll heal you. And so I feel like that really helped. So I kinda take that as a way of just, reminding everyone that, especially star seeds, that you have star families, and if you connect with them, they can help you when you really need it, whether it's emotional distress, a breakup, or whether it's a serious healing, issue. So that's stuck with me. And at the time, I didn't know who they were. Uh, Now I would say, "Okay, that's my star family. Those are the beings that I'm connected with, that in kinda like being a star seed."
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. And I don't know if you're aware or not, but I also got poisoned at a conference last year, and the same thing happened afterwards. I never felt my guides, I guess, my star family around me so much after that experience to help me heal from that. It was like palpable that they were there. So I think in times of need, if you call them, they will show up. So it's a great testimony. And thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable. It's understandable that these things happen, and I'm glad you're here with us today. And you've not stopped. I think it kind of lit a fire under your ass, and you've been putting out a lot of great content lately, including which something I would like to cover today is like, this Earth Alliance liberation from the deep state and this deep state takedown and everything that's kind of happening right now. I guess in a nutshell, for somebody who doesn't know, can you explain like what do you believe is happening right now behind the scenes with this deep state cabal takedown?
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that is related to my, being poisoned and then recovering, because I kind of feel like, after the recovery, I lost my fear of the deep state. And I was told back in 2000, well, I actually was told back in 2009 about the Satanic, networks, what they were doing with, little people, and, the SRA and all of that stuff, and I was told about it. I read the Franklin cover-up at the time, and I spoke with Ted Gunderson, special agent in charge of the Los Angeles FBI. Spoke with him, and he said, "Yeah, this is what's going on, and can you talk about it?" And at the time, I was, just establishing myself, or had been working for a few years in the exopolitics field. But quite honestly, Tyler, I was too scared. I was like thinking, "Oh, gee, shit! If I start talking about this stuff, I mean, I'm pissing a lot of people off talking about the exopolitics arena. Now I'm going to start talking about the satanic rituals and what they're doing to young people, and how they use them in honeypot operations to blackmail politicians and judges and so forth. That I would they would attack me. And I've been told about my past lives, and like a lot of people, I've been killed, assassinated for speaking the truth. So I also thought, okay, I'll just stick to the exopolitics. And I kind of like looked at people like Kerry Cassidy that were very outspoken on these issues, and I thought, oh, all power to them, because she's got more courage than me. And so I left it at that. But after the illness, coming out of hospital and surviving, it was like part of me was like, "Okay, no fear." And I started talking about this, and then I saw what was going on, with the whole kinda like, Washington DC being taken over by federal forces. Some of the people I've been interviewing were talking about the underground bases being liberated. where the Earth Alliance is working with positive ETs and taking out the Satanists and the negative ETs. So, I was familiar with all that stuff. But then when Trump started to bring in the National Guard, first there was Los Angeles, and then it was like, okay, it's a federal takeover of Washington D.C. And I lived in Washington D.C. for 8 years, and I know the architecture of that place, and it's designed. The streets are laid out in this kind of like inverted pentagram, going all the way from the White House up 16th Street, which is the major axis, and as you go up, you hit the Freemason temple up there on 16th Street, and it forms this inverted, broken pentagram. And according to occult literature, the broken pentagram is inviting the devil. I mean, an intact pentagram is a something that will protect you, but a broken pentagram does the opposite. It's an invitation to the devil. So I kind of put two and two together, realized that what was going on was that Trump was using the federalization of the Washington D.C. Metro Police and filling it with federal forces as really taking out the underground bases there, where the Satanists have their lairs and they perform all of their dark rituals. And so, I began to talk about that, and got a few interviews with Redacted, Clayton Morris. He kind of wanted to know about that. And, I just went into the history of how Washington D.C. was designed to be this capital for light, but that it was infiltrated, taken over by these Satanists, and they kind of inverted it all and made it a capital for darkness. So yeah, and I think this is what's been happening in Washington, starting off with just clearing that place out of all the dark energies, the Satanists, and now they're moving on to other major cities like Chicago, now Memphis, and now Los Angeles. So, yeah, I think this is the Earth Alliance working with the Trump administration to remove these Satanists and their kind of underground power centers.
Excellent summary of all that. I agree. I think it's actually deeper than that too. I mean, there's other factions and other even dimensions involved and technologies involved. And I think that, the story that we get is just a surface level narrative. And this obviously goes much, much deeper, including things like the secret space program and like the Earth Alliance would be considered a faction of that. And obviously, even within those networks, there's infiltration that needs to be cleaned up. So what do you like? I know this is something that you've encountered lately, and it's becoming more apparent that things like the Galactic Federation and like the SSP Alliance might have had double agents within those agencies that actually be kind of like the Sith Lords in Star Wars that were just hiding in plain sight. And so what do you think, about that? Because this is another layer of this that most people don't consider.
Yeah, well, we have different organizations that are collaborating. I mean, you got the Earth Alliance, the military white hats from different countries, all working together to take on the deep state. And the deep state, the globalists, the Satanists, I mean, they specialize in deception and infiltration. And, they do this not just with Earth institutions, but they do it with galactic organizations as well. And, so this is really controversial. Some people will say that, oh, well, the Galactic Federation of Worlds, they have really good security protocols. It would never allow negative ETs to infiltrate. The Ashtar Command also has excellent security protocols. But others are saying the opposite, that these organizations have been infiltrated. And the main idea is that at the higher level, at the leadership level, the infiltration has led to this kind of permissiveness where, they don't do anything to really stop what the negative factions have been doing on Earth for a long, long time. And that they kind of allow the disclosure process to be dragged out. And so, there are those that talk about the infiltration being something that just kind of like leads to the leadership just allowing a lot of crap to go on and not really do anything to stop it. But of course, you have others that are talking about what's happening on the ground, where the Galactic Federation, the Ashtar Command, other positive ET organizations are helping the Earth Alliance clean out the negative bases. So they get upset if you say this. If you say, well, the leadership may have been compromised or infiltrated in some way, they get upset because, they're losing people, they're doing all this stuff on the ground. So it's important to differentiate between the rank and file that are doing all the heavy lifting in clearing out these underground bases, the Satanists, the negative ETs, and the leadership that may be compromised at some level, where they may be, let's just say, a little too permissive in allowing things to go on. Because everything could be over really quickly. They could just have ships showing up in the skies. The Galactic Federation has the power to do that. But we're told that if they did that the cabal still controls the mass media. They'd make it look like an invasion, and and everything would go backwards. So, you're getting into a lot of kind of policy debates there. But I think that these positive organizations, the rank and file, are doing a lot of good stuff. But if you look at the leadership and some of the decisions that have been made, you do have to question why is the disclosure process being dragged out so long? Why are people allowed to, kind of suffer and go through all of the things we have to go through as a civilization, just because the deep state is still around, and people say, well, we need to learn our lessons. So it's complex.
Absolutely. It's apparent that your years of research allow you to cover this from all angles because you just did a great job of breaking this down and what it could look like. And there's a lot of politics involved. And like another Star Wars reference, but even the Jedi Council didn't know that Palpatine was a Jedi, much less evil, And so they were like, he was hiding there amongst them. And that's how the infiltration happened, and a lot of people say Star Wars is a documentary, but even the most intuitive council in the galaxy didn't know that there was a Sith Lord amongst them. And this is, I think, as above, so below. We see that in the surface level politics in the Trump administration. Keep your friends close, your enemies closer. You never really know who's who. And honestly, to take this stuff down, sometimes you have to do it from the inside and even become your enemy to think like them, so you understand like how this infiltration is occurring. And it's not as black and white as somebody just come and say, oh, we're impenetrable, nothing can penetrate our defenses, but that's not true. So I appreciate you covering that. And you recently put out a video about like these tech giants defecting from the deep state, and maybe you can explain like what you see happening there.
Yeah, that's an important one. There was that meeting on September 4 where the tech giants, people involved in AI, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Sam Altman, what is it? The head of Google, Pinder Suchar, I think it is. A bunch of them that were there that showed up at the White House, talking about their AI initiatives. And what I saw there, and there was a kind of source, some information. This came from the GFL station. I've spoken to the person who started that up, David Nichols, and he seems to be a very credible person, and I take his information seriously. And so he put out the idea that, or he was told from information he says was given to him by the Ashtar Command, that this meeting at the White House represented a defection by the big tech leaders, that they were defecting from the deep state because they realized that the deep state was losing this kind of information war against the Earth Alliance, and so they decided to jump ship. And to me, that made a lot of sense because my background was in peace and conflict resolution, And I was very interested in nonviolent as a tool of conflict resolution. And in every case where there's been a nonviolent revolution or even violent revolutions, they always happen not well, I mean, they happen because you have people rising up in anger, but there's always elites that defect to the people. And then all of a sudden, those elites, whether they were generals, whether they were uh, high finance people or religious leaders, whatever, when they defect, they carry with them part of the establishment, and then they start kind of like working for the positive side, and that's how you have revolutions. And that's what we're having right now in the United States with the Earth Alliance and the Trump administration, that decades of control by the deep state that go back at least to the Second World War era, that is being overturned, and now you're going to have white hats taking over and really exercising control over how a lot of this advanced technology that's been found and secretly developed and kind of like put out into the field, how all of that is going to be used. And so that means that these big tech guys that were working on AI that was going to be used by the deep state to control the rest of humanity, when these guys defected, they took with them everything they know and all of their resources concerning AI, and they want to use it for positive purposes. So this is where we get into the whole idea of, well, can AI be used for positive purposes? And I know that, that again, that's controversial. There are some people that say, and going back to my Corey Good days, Corey was like saying, "Oh, AI bad, secret space programs, screen it out, won't let it get anywhere near any kind of genuine SSP program." But then you look at some of the contactees, the information that they have been sharing about different galactic civilizations, and they say, well, actually, the use of AI, it's all about consciousness. If your consciousness is sufficiently developed and your intent is to use it for positive purposes, sure, it's actually used. It's a positive thing. If your consciousness is all about power, conquest, surveillance, control, then yeah, you'll use AI for negative purposes. So this seems to me to be consistent with what we're seeing, that initially the people like Gates and Altman and those others that are involved in these big AI initiatives, Zuckerberg and so forth, that these people were using it for control and surveillance. But now, with this defection, they're going to be working for the Earth Alliance. So, the proof is in the pudding. You have these photos from that meeting and showing Trump and Melania Trump being very kind of happy, and these big tech guys were very happy to be at the White House. So whether the thing is, in the next few months, will we see big tech actually doing some positive things? Not do so much censorship. I mean, it's funny, just last week I had YouTube approach me and tell me that 2 of my older videos were taken down because they violated their terms of agreement. So, thankfully I didn't get any strike because they were older videos, but they're still doing it. They're still doing the censorship. So I hope that over the next few months we're going to see concrete evidence that this defection is real, that these big tech leaders are kind of giving up the censorship model, and they're going to be using AI to help humanity and help uplift us and bring out some really good applications of AI.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important to understand, and thank you for sharing all that. It's important to understand, like, that meeting with Bill Gates and Zuckerberg. Everyone was really mad, like, why are you in a meeting with these people and instead of arresting them, right? And I can only imagine some sort of some sort of meeting taking place behind the scenes where basically it's like, listen, you've lost. We've got all this dirt on you. We could either put you in jail or publicly execute you, or you can work with us here. This is your opportunity to
So
save face. Go ahead, Aaron.
those are your options. I think
Yeah.
that's happened quite a bit in recent years. Is behind the scenes, people are given two options. They say, option number one, execution or arrest for life, and that's it. Option number two, you actually work with us and you flip and you give us all of your knowledge and information, and you help us and you work with us, and it saves your reputation, at least for a little while, until inevitably the truth does come out.
Right.
I
And
think
and
that's what's happened.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can only imagine that there's, like I said, these think tanks that use some form of timeline technology where they're playing out all these scenarios and looking at these probabilities and what it would look like if these people defected and worked with them, or if they just arrested them. Because these are high value people that have a lot of value. They could have a lot of value to a future scenario where we're actually going into a golden age. And sometimes, as much as we would like to see them arrested, and maybe that it would be more beneficial for them to actually ally with us, even though the people in the know who they really are and what they've done, and they'll always hold that over their heads. And in the event that they don't cooperate, then then they'll be arrested. So, what do you feel about that being the case, Sala?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened, and I think of like the communist collapse in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union uh, back around 1989, 1990. It was like you had these career communist officials suddenly defecting from the regime, and now they're siding with the people. And these communist officials went on to become like captains of industry and so forth, and helped that transition and became leading politicians and so forth. And that happens exactly in that way, that when you have these revolutions, when you have transitions of power, uh, people from the former regime, they're given the choice. Like, are you going to come and side with us and bring your resources and your people and help be part of the solution, or are you going to resist to the end, and then we'll come after you, and that'll be bad for you. And I think that's exactly what's been happening now. And I think the big tech guys, they're just the beginning of this process. I mean, there's a lot of major corporations, and we've kind of started to see that with a lot of corporations giving up the woke agenda now. But the major media, the legacy media, is still disgusting. I mean, it just continues to put out lies. It continues to just put out information to make it look like the Trump administration is fascist and violating the Constitution, which is the kind of reverse of the truth.
Right.
And so I think they're going to be next, the legacy media, and I'll be particularly happy about that, because I think those guys are really disgusting. Being a kind of like a journalist investigator myself, I mean, to see these guys just put out lie after lie, year after year, I mean, it's disgusting. So, I think it'll be good when the legacy media comes crashing down, and they swamp. I mean, basically, bring out the military tribunals and start arresting these guys for aiding and abetting the enemy at a time of war, because that's, I think, what the deepest significance behind this renaming of the Department of Defense to the Department of War is that we are in a war, that we are in a war against this kind of global satanic network that not only operates throughout the United States but operates worldwide, and it's a necessary worldwide effort to remove this. And these legacy media guys that have been given cover to that, I mean, they're traitors, and so they should be removed. And I really don't think they have, unlike people like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, who have a lot of resources and a lot of wealth behind them, that is a bargaining chip. I think for a lot of these kind of like people that write for legacy media and just been putting out lies, I don't know what kind of bargaining chip they have. For them, it's like they're aiding and abetting the enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And it's interesting to me that they changed it from Department of Defense to Department of War. And if you think about that, like Department of Defense means you're always on defense. You're never on the offensive, right? And it's
Right.
just an interesting war strategy. I think you're literally telling people, okay, now we're no longer defending. Like we're coming after you. you know,
Right.
and obviously we don't want to incite violence or anything like that, and it doesn't have to be done violently.
Yeah, exactly. I think that renaming was indicating that they are now moving. The White Hats are moving from defensive operations, trying to stop the Black Hats, the deep state, from launching false flag events. So I think they've been really watching out for that and trying to prevent that. So they've been on the defense to prevent false flag events. But now we've reached the point where enough of the underground bases have been taken out and enough of the deep state resources have been neutralized that now the White Hats can go on the offense. And I think that's really why they renamed it the Department of War, to really like make it clear to deep state people that we're coming after you. And if you don't surrender, if you don't defect like the big tech guys, you're going to be arrested and you're going to be put through a military tribunal because these constitute treason or insurrection. What you've been doing, and so that's where you have the whole thing of like the JAG officers being moved into Washington D.C. To help the kind of like speed up hearings, because those JAG officers, they're associated with military tribunals. And military tribunals only are constitutionally valid when the civilian courts can't operate. And in this case, in the situation we have now with the kind of like this satanic network, so many judges are compromised that have been involved, that have been, let's just say, there's control files on them that the regular judicial process doesn't work. So that's when military tribunals come in. So constitutionally, you can actually have secret military tribunals where JAG officers are prosecuting everyone that's being arrested by the military, and I think that's part of this whole Department of War initiative.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. And so, what are your thoughts on them moving Space Command or Space Force to Huntsville, Alabama? I know you interviewed JP, and he claims there's like an underground Nordic base there, and there's just an interesting move. And I don't know really. I know you've probably done more digging on this than we have. So, what are your thoughts on like the strategicness of that?
Well, Huntsville, Alabama is very interesting. I mean, uh, we know Richard Sorter wrote a book, Underground Bases, and in there he talks about there was a plan to build a huge underground base in the Green Mountain area, which is just south of Huntsville, Alabama, and that this was where they wanted to have a kind of like mini Pentagon built. And so there were a couple of local newspaper stories talking about a big contract that was awarded to build this underground base, and then nothing else happened. And then you look at what happened with the uh, creation of the Marshall Space Flight Center that was under the control of the Nazis, under von Braun, Arthur Rudolph, and those guys. They established the Marshall Space Flight Center, and they were also in charge of the Kennedy Center. These were German Nazis brought it under Operation Paperclip. And so what's going on there? What was really happening is that, the hundreds of billions of dollars that went into the Apollo program, that was a cover for a massive amounts of money to be siphoned into the Fourth Reich, into the Dark Fleet. So a lot of that money was going to the Dark Fleet to help their operations. And I think that some of that money ended up in this building the huge infrastructure under Green Mountain for a spaceport that the Fourth Reich was using. So I think that's how it began, that underground spaceport there at Green Mountain was first developed in conjunction with funneling all this money from the Apollo program through the Marshall Space Flight Center at Huntsville down to the Nazis, so that and it was quid pro quo. It was like, well, the Americans were like, well, we'll give you all of this money, all of these resources, and you teach us how to build this technology. And so the Germans got everything they needed to have their dark fleet expand out of South America, out of Antarctica, and in exchange, the paperclip scientists were helping the Americans build, reverse engineer their own spacecraft, and I think that's probably where this underground spaceport at Green Mountain came in. Now we fast forward to around 2022, 2023, and JP says he was taken twice to a spaceport in northern Alabama near the border of Tennessee, and he got to see this base, and that it was like it had like hundreds of flying saucer-shaped craft. There was a lot of Nordic ETs there, and that they were training international pilots how to fly these things. So I think what had happened was that what had been originally built in the 50s, and that the German paperclip scientists helped reverse engineer the craft. Eventually, some Nordic ETs got involved, and they also helped build craft, reverse engineer craft, so that now there's huge spaceport under Huntsville. And I think this is why the decision was made to move Space Command from Peterson Space Force Base to Huntsville, because they're going to use that underground facility there for disclosure. And JP was talking about that at the time, saying how the pilots were being trained and the Nordics were being prepared to kind of like unleash these, hundreds of the flying saucer craft, and like show themselves to the public. So I think that is part of the disclosure process. And because Colorado, Peterson Space Force Base, I mean, that still has a very powerful deep state influence there. So I think that the Earth Alliance has more of a presence in Huntsville than it does in Colorado.
I mean, that makes sense to me. That was a great breakdown, and obviously there's something like that. I mean, they would obviously be taking over a base. It's not like they're just going to go and build this new infrastructure. Something's already been established, and it only makes sense for them to go and basically take that over. And I do believe that there's not only just that spaceport, but a number of spaceports probably all over the world, but definitely throughout the United States. And, it's interesting to me that we still have like simultaneously this like Elon Musk and SpaceX and this whole rocket roost that's still going on. And like, what do you think? I mean, how does that compare to the NASA rocket roost? But also, why do you think that's still being pushed? And because Elon's got to be in the know on some level, right?
Yeah, well, I think Elon Musk, like any major industrialist, at the beginning, he was allowed to get to where he is because what he was doing kind of like supported the deep state's interests. They allowed him to build a rocket-powered space program that would really kind of like be used to kind of pull the wool over the public's eyes for another 10 years or so. I mean, I think the legacy aerospace companies that have been doing that for some time, building rockets and making it look like that is that's the only game in town. I think they're kind of sick and tired of playing that game because they know it's a waste of resources, and so you have Elon Musk come in and he's very gung ho about, and I think initially he believed it. I think he really did believe that developing these reusable rockets using kind of liquid propulsion systems that date back to the 1940s and 50s, kerosene and methane and all of that, that would be the future of the space program. I think he initially really believed it, and I think the deep state were happy to have him kind of like become the poster boy for how reusable rockets is the future of the space program, because I think it gave the deep state a way to kind of like hide the real stuff for another decade or two. And so now what we have with SpaceX and with Musk is that, well, the plan is to build these starships that are going to go to Mars, that they're going to, Musk is all about, well, let's forget about the moon. We've been there, done that. Let's go to Mars. And if that's the case, if they bypass the moon altogether, that'll mean that it'll probably be in the early 2030s that you would actually have the first colonists arriving on Mars on these SpaceX starships. And that's when you could have the colonists arrive, and then it's like, hey, guess what? We've found artifacts from ancient civilizations. ET life is real. So I think the deep state wanted that, and that they encouraged Musk to go down that path. But now I think that what we are seeing is everything is being reassessed with the collapse of the deep state. I think that disclosure is going to happen much more quickly than what the deep state was planning. And it'll be interesting to see whether Musk comes on board. I mean, I think he'd be crazy not to, but he's got a very strange personality.
I mean, he even said himself on the Joe Rogan interview that he's an alien and he's just trying to get back home. And he said it in a joking manner, but I think there's some truth to that. And just like Tesla and the FBI files, it literally says that Tesla was from Venus, So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Elon Musk was not even who we think he is at all. So, of course, he would be used by the deep state to push that narrative, and I agree with you. So hopefully that is being undermined and changed.
I also think there's a lot of evidence that shows he's actually working with the White Hats now. I don't know if he always was, but I think definitely now he is, personally. I think that whole spat between him and Trump not too long ago was a fake, fabricated, orchestrated kind of psyop, but a good psyop, I think there's a lot of evidence that points to that. I know not everyone agrees with that, but it just seemed there's so many things that pointed to like it was so contrived, and then all of a sudden, oh, now they're cool again. And it kind of, I mean, one thing that happened is that it got a lot of people, because a lot of people on the left, it's like the White Hats, I've noticed, have been trying to do things that get them more on the same page with the people like us, at least, or the people that support Trump, at least, or that know more, a little bit more what's going on, and don't just write off all conspiracies, right? I don't know. There's things that keep happening that seem to, whether they're organic or whether they're orchestrated, they're serving as these catalysts to get enough of humanity to a point where they can do disclosure in a way that's going to be, it's going to go a lot smoother, I think. So I personally think Elon knows way more than he publicly wants to or is even allowed to say. And I think he is working with the White Hats.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, I would agree. And I also don't think that there's like, I always wonder if they're, sending payloads with these SpaceX launches too, like to some sort of secret space base or space station. It's not all a waste. They're telling us it's for this A or B, whatever reason, but really they're sending supplies to a space station or something. It would make sense to me anyway.
Yeah, well, SpaceX has been doing a lot of missions for NASA and doing some for the Air Force, and and we know that there's a couple of big space stations up there, and that the space shuttle used to go up and service that. So I would not be surprised at all that Musk's Dragon 9 craft doing missions up there to the secret space program that they have up there that was built built by the NRO with the Air Force back in the 70s. So I think that is very real. So Musk knows about that. I think how much Musk knows about the secret space program. I think kind of looking at his personality, I think he would be the sort of person that if he knew the full truth, that he wouldn't want to mess around with reusable rockets. I think he would just like get really depressed and like just, why am I messing around with reusable rockets? This is crazy if there's this anti-gravity stuff. So I think they probably kept a lot of that from him because they want him to um, really believe that reusable rockets is the future of the space program, um, and I think so. They have a vested interest in him believing that for now. So they maybe have told him a little bit about some of the advanced tech, but I think a lot of it has probably been hidden from him.
Right, I agree. And how do you think so the Artemis Accords obviously lay out like the rules and regulations for what would it look like if we did move into space and have these space colonies and programs. And I think they're just kind of rebranding the regulations that have already been in place. But how do you think those are all playing into what we're going to see moving forward into the Star Trek future?
Yeah, the Artemis Accords are really important because at the moment the governing document for outer space is the Outer Space Treaty that was signed and ratified in the 1960s, and that pretty much made space the common property of humanity. That no one country could go out there and claim space, or claim the moon, or claim any planet on its behalf. That everything would be developed for the common good of humanity. That's the Outer Space Treaty. And so the Artemis Accords were developed so that it would enable private corporations to go out there and do the exploration, the mining, the tourism, and all of that, and not have to worry too much about being prevented because of the Outer Space Treaty. And what's interesting is that the Outer Space Treaty is a multilateral treaty. I can't remember the exact number. Well over 100 nations have signed it, and it's been ratified. But the Artemis Accords are bilateral treaties, bilateral agreements, and that's between the United States, or between NASA and the State Department, and every individual signatory. So all these other countries, I think there's about 54, 55 countries at the moment that have signed the Artemis Accords. They are all with the US. They're bilateral. And and you have to ask yourself, well, why would other countries do this? Why would they go from a multilateral treaty that governs the development and use of space to bilateral agreements that cement U.S. leadership for another century? Why would major countries like France, Germany, India do this? And I think the answer is that they're doing it because they're being allowed to get some of the advanced technology that's been secretly developed. And it was very interesting, when we were talking about the spaceport there in Alabama near Huntsville, that JP said, I mean, what he described, he says he was taken there in a bus. There were 35 people there. 33 of those people on the bus, aside from the driver, were international pilots from all over the world. And when they arrived at the base, they all got out and they all ran to a particular flying saucer and were met with a Nordic. And that Nordic was training them. And I think this is the carrot. This is the carrot for the Artemis Accords. It's like, okay, Germany, France, Italy, Britain, all of you countries that have space programs, if you work with us, if you sign this bilateral agreement with us, we're going to give you access to this level of technology. Your pilots will be trained how to fly these reverse engineered flying saucer craft. And that's going to be what will eventually be unveiled to the people. And you'll be a part of all of that. Or you can choose to kind of like work with China and stay on the outside of it all. And so all of the major space nations, except for Russia, have signed on to the Artemis Accords because, they all want a piece of that action. And the other thing about the Artemis Accords is that it establishes a mechanism which is recognized under international law for the development of bases, mining colonies, and kind of tourism in space. And they talk about something called the safety zones. So they establish these safety zones. And these safety zones are where a company can go and like develop a base, whether it's for tourism, whether it's for mining, and they can establish a base. And they don't have to worry about someone else coming along and saying, "Hey, we want that territory for our base. Get out of there, or we'll blow you up," or something. These safety zones are part of the Artemis Accords, and they will be enforced by something called Olympic Defender. And the Olympic Defender is the military muscle behind the Artemis Accords. It's where the U.S. Space Command is partnering with the space commands from other countries to build up a unified, integrated space command system where they could operate in space and defend all these signatories to the Artemis Accords who have established safety zones for their operations. So Olympic Defender is a very important kind of like multilateral space initiative to understand, because at the moment it's like it's the Five Eyes countries, the US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and Britain, and also Germany and France are part of Olympic Defender, and Italy, Norway, and Japan are all kind of like associated with it. They're getting ready to join it as well. So that's going to be like the future Starfleet, where you actually have all the major nations that have military commands in space all integrating under US leadership, which will be Olympic Defender.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you've definitely done your research on that. I've read through the Artemis Accords just one time, front to back. I just wanted to see what it was about. And to me, it felt like that they made these laws based on experience. Like they've learned the hard way a couple times, like these safety zones, like they've already probably established colonies or bases that have just been like you don't have jurisdiction here, and they just take over the spot. So they've set, laws in place so that can't happen again. And to me, it's like, so they've established the Artemis Accords based on everything that all the trial and error from the secret space program. And then now that it's becoming more public, they have a set of rules now that actually makes a lot more sense, because it's not so experimental. It's not in the experimental phase anymore. We're moving into this like Star Trek future where everyone's working in coherence, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, that's kind of like really important when we look at the way in which you start to integrate these secret space programs into this architecture that's being created, like the Artemis Accords, Olympic Defender, because, I mean, the Solar Warden program and what the Air Force secret space program was doing out there for decades before Space Force was created, all of that is operating with, they've got fleets of anti-gravity craft out there doing their own things, some working with the Dark Fleet, and but the Navy Solar Warden is the kind of like the big one, and it's like, well, how do you integrate that into the present kind of like infrastructure that exists? At the moment, it's not ready, because Space Force is not a Navy operation. It's in the Department of the Air Force. So Space Force doesn't incorporate the Navy Solar Warden program. Space Command is an integrated command structure, so it integrates different military services to kind of like unify combat operations in space. And so Space Command, as it's currently constructed, is where you could actually have the Solar Warden program working with the current kind of like infrastructure in space to do what needs to be done. So Space Command at the moment is the most important kind of like a mechanism, because the Solar Warden program can work with it without any big problem. It's under the way in which the US has set up its combatant commands. Space Command can do that. Now, in the future, when the truth is revealed about the secret space programs, that's when the Navy Solar Warden program will probably need to be incorporated into something like a department of the Space Force, rather than currently Space Force is part of the Department of the Air Force. Space Force will have to become its own separate department, and then Solar Warden will be part of that. But I think they're kind of like they're setting it all up because the goal is a transition, and now that the Earth Alliance is in the process of defeating the deep state all over the planet, uh, everything will be set in place for revealing that yes, humanity has developed these anti-gravity fleets of craft, and they are all under the control of US Space Command, and they can kind of like do it that way, and it'll be, I think, very seamless. So Space Command and this Olympic Defender, I think they're going to be really important in the decades ahead.
Yeah, I agree. They're getting their ducks in a row right now, and like obviously, I don't know if it'll play out as quickly as we would like, but I think that's on the horizon. Because we're still seeing like articles and stuff coming out about like they're training the first woman astronaut to go to Mars. So there's still like this other narrative where they're going to take the slow route. So it'd be interesting to see how it plays out. And I think everything that you've covered today basically encapsulates what you do very well. I mean, you've been covering exopolitics for years now. How you're explaining this stuff at expert level, and I really appreciate that for anyone just finding their way to our podcast or even you, because a lot of new people are waking up. So laying this information out in the way that you're doing is going to be very helpful, I think, for people that are scratching their heads. A lot of people are believing that space is fake and we've never been to the moon, when in fact there's quite literally a different story that's been told or played out behind the scenes. So I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you would like to get into before we start wrapping it up?
Yeah, I think what would be very interesting is what is going to happen in terms of uh, Earth joining the galactic community. I think in a way, like, is the Earth going to, as a planet, just kind of like sign on and become a full member of the Galactic Federation of Worlds, for example? Or will it go its own way? And I think a good example is in the Star Trek series, Deep Space Nine. There was this planet Bajor that had come out of a period of kind of like domination by the Cardassians, who were like a reptilian race, and the Federation of Worlds was like, okay, we want you to join us, but there was this kind of like the whole series was based upon, well, should Bajor join? When is the right time to join? And I think in a way we're like that as a planet, that we shouldn't just rush headlong into signing on to something like the Galactic Federation, full partner, because it's like, well, do we really want to go down that path, or is there another path, a path where maybe humanity develops more in a kind of spiritual way? Some people talk about um, Jedi admirals and the Earth being given the opportunity to develop in a way where we kind of like look at our potential as a species. Alex Collier talked about the Patal. Some talk about the Jedi kind of like masters. Some talk about ascended masters. So I personally think that we have a potential, which is something that we need to explore as a planet first before we sign on to something like the Galactic Federation, which has its own military hierarchical structure. And I think we should probably explore that first, because to me the big unknown is like the inner Earth. Like, we have these inner Earth civilizations that are really very ancient. They have a lot of wisdom, and if we go down the track of kind of like joining the Galactic Federation, in a way, it's to ignore the inner Earth beings, uh, because I think they can be a great example of where we can go as a species. So, yeah, I just think that we don't want to be in too much of a hurry. We need to take our time, explore all our options, consult with the inner Earth civilizations, because ultimately it's like, well, who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust all these species out there? Like the Andromedans, the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, the Ashtar Command. I mean, all of them have their benefits, very highly evolved. But I think we need to consult with the inner Earth civilizations that are kind of like in communion or resonate with the consciousness of the planet, of Gaia, that Gaia has its own distinct consciousness. And so I think that's where we need to spend a little bit of time exploring those options. So yeah, I think it's kind of like very instructive to look at Bajor in the Deep Space Nine series and say that, okay, we're very similar to that. So let's take our time. Let's not rush into anything.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the inner Earth because, I mean, Ashtar Command is said to reside in the inner Earth, or at least have a base there, at least what I've researched. So a lot of these groups are already here too, living within the planet. And I don't think we consider that enough. And it's already like, okay, this has been established long ago, and we're just playing catch up. So we could join them, like you said, or create our own, because we might even be able to do it better, because there's this hierarchical structure in place, which means we would be somewhere on that ladder, when if we did it on our own, we can create a whole new way of exploring. So I don't know, it's very interesting. I love that you brought up all those points, and yeah, I just can't thank you enough for joining us. Aaron, did you have anything you wanted to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, going back to Inner Earth and the beings that live there, I'm trying to remember the author, Diane Robbins. That's her name.
Yeah.
Diane Robbins. So she's written multiple books. She claims she channels, I think, a Dhamma of Inner Earth, or like these beings basically from Inner Earth, and they give her all this information. And I've read a couple of her books. Apparently, she and Lowell Johnson have been in contact, and she said things to him that he had never told anyone, that confirmed kind of further his information, and he knew she was legit. Anyways, in her book, she talks about how a lot of these inner Earth beings they're just as advanced as extremely advanced ETs, but they live inside of our own planet, and they've been there for a long, long time, well before humans as we know it have been even evolved to what we are potentially. Or there's the information going back to Atlantis and Lemuria that many of them went into the Earth before the destruction happened, and things like that. And supposedly they are actually already in contact with many other ET races and with these federations and all of this kind of stuff already. And they have their own ships, their own fleets, and all that kind of stuff. So if you think about it, our planet already is there. It's just us on the surface are being kept in the dark, and are being kind of kept away from all of that, because the dark, the cabal with the reptilians and everything else have kind of like enslaved humanity for a long time, at least, or manipulated us and made sure they've used us as a resource rather than allowing us to flourish and connect with that and connect with other ETs on a massive scale, right? Well, I think finally now we're at this phase where that the cleanup is happening to get rid of that control, to give us a chance to naturally grow to a point where we are ready to connect, not just with ETs out there, but ones that have been here the whole time in a more open way. Obviously, there's people for forever that have had their own contact, but in a more open and mass way. Yeah. I think that is going to be happening, and we're going to be able to connect with those inner Earth beings and live amongst them openly and freely. Maybe even be able to live inside the Earth if you so choose, even. And I think they already have their own craft and their own technologies that they'll then be able to openly share. And I think the Sasquatch and all the races that I think are on the surface that are advanced, that are kind of in hiding, they're going to be able to live openly and freely as well at a certain point. So, there's a lot of stuff that's already here on this planet that kind of gets overlooked in a lot of this talk about disclosure. It's like that, and we ourselves, our genetics are from the ETs, right? We have these latent abilities that are kind of dormant in our DNA that are going to more and more. We're already seeing it kind of come online. People are becoming more psychic and telepathic, and and all these kind of things. So really, it's like disclosure is an inside job. Like we are disclosure. We are an active part of this, and we have so much more already that we don't even realize until we fully do realize that. And then it's like we're going to get to a point very soon here where like we're not going to ever be able to be controlled or enslaved ever again. And I think for a while now we've been kind of in this incubation phase, and I think a lot of forces and beings have been making sure that disclosure doesn't happen too quickly or in a way that could just allow this to happen all over again, right? Or we destroy ourselves because we're not ready, right? So I think it's all happening in divine orchestration in the way that it needs to, so that we can truly thrive and be self-governing,
Yeah, and I would add that the inner Earth beings, because they have such a long history, they are better capable of being able to recognize deception from the ETs, because they've been through it all. They've watched civilizations get infiltrated, taken over, destroyed by negative ET races, so they can be better advisors to that. And and I remember from the Radu Cinema book series. I don't know if you've read, I think one of the books was Journey to Inner Earth, and he talked about how Earth is structured, and as you go deeper and deeper into the inner Earth, you're rising up in densities. So as you get closer to the core of the Earth, which is more like a sun, he says that's where you get the higher densities, and that's where the most evolved civilizations are, and that's where Shambhala is. And Shambhala just comes up again and again in the literature. And so to me, it would be like, well, as a planet, if we're trying to come up with the optimal plan for developing the planet, I would say that we need to make contact with the beings from Shambhala and communicate with them and get their advice on, well, how do we deal with the Galactic Federation, the Ashtar Command, the Anunnaki, and the negative greys or the hybrid greys and the reptilians. We need to have the advice of those who have been aware of this for thousands of years and get their take on it to make good decisions. So that's what I would like to do in the future, is to just be able to get the information from all the different players and say, okay, this is what the beings from Shambhala say, this is what the Ashtar Command says, this is what Galactic Federation says, and Enki over here is saying this. So let's decide what's the best path for us.
Right. I mean, you're talking about an Earth Council, an actual council where these ideas are put on the table, and then a move is made from there, which is how it should be, instead of one power group just trying to control everything. So I think we're moving that direction, and I think the inner Earth beings are already in contact with a lot of individuals. And depending on where you're at and on your journey and how much that you lean into that reality, and they see you come online, and if that's your intention, they'll communicate with you. So I mean, it's happened. We've had it documented. There's been books written about it. And I think that's an important part of disclosure that, doesn't get discussed enough. But like Aaron said, it's already been happening on this planet for a long time. So just coming to that realization and having that understanding will fundamentally help us move forward, because now we know our origins and where we've come from. And if you don't know who you are, where you've come from, like that, obviously, like cutting somebody off from their true origins is a great way to control them, right? Once we learn who we really are and where we came from, then we take our power back and remember who we are, and that's the future. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, and let our audience know if you where to find you, for one, but if you have any like webinars or anything coming up that you'd like to announce.
Yeah, sure. My website's exopolitics.org, and I do regular webinars. I do a monthly briefing, and I do webinar panels like every 6 weeks or every couple of months. So yeah, you can just go to my website, and I've got a Patreon channel as well for people that want to kind of support me financially. That's always appreciated. So thanks for having me on the show. It's been a blast and great to talk to both of you, Tyler and Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. This is we've been looking forward to this, and I think this is one of the best interviews we've done in a while. We really covered a lot of ground, and you explain everything so thoroughly. I think people will really enjoy it. So, just thanks again, and thanks to the audience who's listening. We can't do this without you. I can't say that enough, but it really means a lot that you show up every week and support us. So, don't forget, we also have a Patreon, and you can find everything we do at journeytotruth.online, including our webinars and conferences. And we're in the middle of working on a big documentary right now on the secret space program. It's an ambitious project. It's a massive undertaking, but we're submitting it to Apple TV, Amazon Prime, all the, any connections we can make, or we would appreciate. So, if anybody out there can help us, has any information or any ties to anybody that we can make this film as big as possible and reach as many people as possible, just send us an email. That would be greatly appreciated. So, I guess with that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks again, Salla, for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Good night. Hey guys, Journey to Truth is going to Hawaii. Join us in 2026 for Journey to Truth's first ever vacation conference on the Big Island at the beautiful Queen Emma Community Center in Kona. Enjoy Hawaii as we travel to sacred sites and connect with our Lemurian past and reactivate the land. It's time to get our bodies moving and take a boots-on-the-ground approach to the awakening. We'll also be making a trip to Volcano National Park to pay our respect to Pele, the goddess of fire. We'll then journey to the water for an ocean adventure with our multi-dimensional aquatic family. We'll gear up and head to the harbor as we set sail under the sun for an activating day on the water while we experience the Hawaiian ocean life like never before. Enjoy Hawaiian sunsets and walks on the beach while connecting with Soul Family and learning a few things from our amazing lineup of speakers. Aloha! Grab your ticket today at journeytotruth.online and join us for this once-in-a-lifetime activating getaway.